question that I'm gonna ask, based off of how some of these things are, and the last conversation we had about a week ago or 2 weeks ago,
Mm.
I think that while Iron Man and the performance that Robert Downey Jr. brought to the table is amazing. Like the fact that, like, I mean, it's just crazy to think Tom Cruise could have been Tony Stark.
Yeah. Yeah, the MCU would not be what it is today if that happened. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just crazy to think that. But I'm gonna just address something here. I think Robert Downey Jr.'s best performances as Iron Man came outside of the Iron Man movies.
hmm hmm I can agree with that. Yeah, most definitely. I mean, the Iron Man trilogy itself, if we were really to look back on it, pound for pound quality films, they're man, I hate to say it, but it's 1 for 3 in terms of.
Woo!
I'm gonna say it's 1 for 3, bro. In terms of going
Woo!
back, Iron Man 2 was basically Avengers prelude, right? Prequel. Had to set up the
Yeah.
Avengers. I, and I mean, that's not RDJ's fault. You know what I'm saying? Like, they had to set it up for the Avengers film. I totally get that. And then Iron Man 3, while it
Nigga,
was slightly better, it really didn't, in comparison to the quality of, like, let's just say Civil War, in comparison to like Thor Ragnarok, it just did not,
okay.
yeah, did not
I
hold
think
up.
so. So, do you think it's a case with Iron Man 3, because Iron Man 3 was the first follow up after the Avengers, and because it was the trilogy film? Because there's some things that I enjoyed about Iron Man 3. The
Mm-hmm.
the 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 the, the swerve that they did with the Mandarin, I didn't mind that. I like that because you went into it expecting one thing, and then when you seen the movie, they actually kept it under wraps until you seen it in the movie. But I get what you're saying. I enjoy the character of Tony Stark. Okay, so you said 1 for 3. My bad, I'm dancing around. But you said 1 for 3. So the one I'm gonna guess is the first Iron Man movie, then, right?
The first Iron Man movie, timeless,
Timeless.
timeless. It's in terms of like, I won't say it's like Dark Knight status per se, but it has like, if you were to say, hey, just a film cinema person, hey, I want a superhero film, you could easily put on Iron Man 1 and you have the best of everything in the superhero genre without going into the extremes of something too, I guess, like a light-hearted superhero film. I
I
think you
got
could
you.
have Iron Man as like that film to put up there.
I
You know
got
what I'm
you.
saying?
As an introduction to a character and to an entire cinematic universe. I get what you're saying. Okay. Yeah,
Right.
that was literally the ribbon cutting for the entire enterprise that came after it.
Exactly. Yep.
And if you don't have somebody like Robert Downey Jr. that's putting 100% into that, the results and the dividends don't come out the same way.
Mm-mm. Not nearly. No. And those are
The,
gonna be
the,
hard shoes to fill in the future for whoever does the
well,
role and whoever wants to whatever they do with that role.
right. So you said 1 out of 3 in terms of actual standalone Iron Man movies with that title, huh?
Yeah. I if you I mean, let's just be honest. I mean it is what it is. Cap Civil War 3 had the help of RDJ in it,
Yes.
but RDJ in that film was better than RDJ in his own films.
Right, because
Like,
there was more for that character to actually do.
right, exactly. And Cap is for me 2 for 3. Cap to me is 2 for 3. Iron Man's 1 for 3. Thor is 1 for 3.
Okay. Well,
Uh,
oh wait, all right. So let's stay
yeah.
on the
Oh, let's
topic
stay
for
on
a
stay on
second.
the topic. Let's stay
We'll
on the
just
Iron
yeah, let's stay on the topic for a
Man. Okay.
second because and we got time. We got time. We'll address that here in a minute because like with the Iron Man film series, it was always a little bit odd to me. I remember when Iron Man 2 came out.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the hype behind it because I went to see it back in 2010 when it came out. And when I went to see it, it was okay. But clearly, what they were able to do with the Iron Man film series, even if the movies weren't all that, they did give us insight in establishing the character of Tony Stark.
Yeah.
If you don't enjoy them on the merit of being upper echelon superhero movies on their own, it was still character development for Tony Stark that paid off and showed in other movies where you seen him later on.
Right, because Iron Man 3's Tony Stark paved the way for that background of him facing Thanos in Infinity War.
Yes,
The paranoia
absolutely.
of the larger looming threat that could take
Yep,
over everything, shut down everything we worked hard for to protect.
absolutely.
You don't get that encounter between Tony and Thanos without that Iron Man 3 backstory. So I definitely see what you're going with that, man.
Yep. So even okay, and would you say, well, you already said it, but I'm just gonna ask you for the sake of asking, but so you would say Iron Man 1, even though the villain for that movie might not be all that memorable, right?
Right.
The villain for that movie might not be all that memorable, and the backdrop of the war on terrorism is still something that was there, but that still was there presented for a reason for the character to change. By the
Hmm.
end of the movie, he decided, I'm not making weapons anymore that are going to be made for killing people. Like, I'm already rich. I don't need to be doing this anymore. So that backdrop, even then, was there to serve a purpose. But
Right.
you would say that the first Iron Man movie is a classic, or would you say that it's like, how would you classify that?
Yeah. And I'm probably being a little bit too harsh when I say it's 1 for 3. I don't mean to say Iron Man 2 and 3 are bad films, but
Yeah.
it's they're such in high regard. When I say 1 for 3, I mean like 1 for 3 of like one of the all time greats. Like I'm not just saying average. I'm saying like an actual good 8 out of 9 out. I'm saying like basically 9 out of a 10 film.
Mm-hmm.
It's such weird. They're so good that when I say 1 for 3, I'm basically saying it's nine. Iron Man 1 is 9 out of 10. The rest are
Right.
like 7 or 6. I'm not saying they're like horrible films. You know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying? But I would say that for Iron Man 1, it's up. I would say it's probably up there in the top 10 superhero films of like all time.
Top
And
10.
I say it's top 10 in terms of what it did, and this coming out the same year as the
The
Dark
Dark
Knight,
Knight. Yes.
as that contrast of like, wow, they can also do it on a very well done scale, but it's a different tone.
Mm-hmm.
It's a different feel. You know what I'm saying? Like in terms
Right.
of like cinematography, the direction, the actors, the music.
The
I mean,
dialogue.
the dialogue. I mean, everything. That movie really, if you really think about it, established Iron Man as the top hero of the world. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like he overcame Superman at that point. He overcame Spider Man. He was over then. I wouldn't say close to Batman, but that movie pushed Iron Man to the upper echelons of pulp culture,
Right. And
way
even if
further than the average superhero movie is supposed to do.
right. And even if we weren't aware of it at the time, I mean, we talked about this before. Long term, long term, that movie paved the way for a lot of what came after it. It's very hard to believe, right? In
Hmm.
terms of this genre of movies that we've been talking about here, it's very hard to believe that only 1 year's time passed between Spider-Man 3 and Iron Man.
It almost seems 4 to 5 years.
But you wouldn't, right? You wouldn't really necessarily know that unless you kind of just keep track of that kind of thing, right? Like,
Right.
so I agree with you on that. I mean, I've only seen Iron Man one time before, but
Hmm.
I agree with that. I could jive with what you're saying. I could rock with that because as an origin story and also as something that it was still a gamble at the end of the day. It was still a gamble. It was still a calculated risk that needed to be taken. If everybody didn't put in 100%, it could have went the route of a lot of other movies that are based on a certain property that didn't pan out like they should have.
Right.
So,
Because let's just face it, Iron Man wasn't the sexiest character at the time being.
well,
Uh,
yeah,
he had the cartoon, sure, back in the 90s, but was it a fire hit like X-Men, Spider-Man, and Batman? Hell no.
no, no,
No,
and
it
I'm
was
gonna keep
not.
it real. I'm just gonna keep it all the way real with you, bro. Like my knowledge of Iron Man was based off of Ghostface Killer, bro. That
Yeah,
was it. It was based off of
right.
Ghostface because he had an album called Iron Man, and
Iron Man,
he had some samples on his album.
right.
His alias was Tony Stark.
Tony
So now
Stark,
you
right.
that was Ghostface alias. I didn't really know anything about Iron Man like that. So yeah. But in terms of the standalone movies that are based off of the individual characters that made up that original core starting five of the Avengers. Let's talk about the Hulk, man.
The
Whew.
Incredible Hulk. Oh, with
Let's talk.
Edward Norton. Came out the same year, 2008.
Yep.
Uh,
Oh man.
Probably the best solo Hulk movie we've ever gotten, we'll ever
That,
get.
that's not a hot. Well, okay. All right.
Well, in comparison to 2003, uh, let's just 2008 has more replay value. Like you can put on 2008 and you can be okay. 2003, unless you're into that thing, like let's just. But I would say the Universal deal. The thing with the Hulk is that he's a great character, but he doesn't really have those great solo story arcs. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah, dog.
he's just
Yeah.
limited in what you can do with him. Let's just be real.
Like, bro, don't you think it's crazy though that not only did they recast Mark Ruffalo as the Hulk for the Avengers, but you didn't get near mention of Betty Ross
Never.
in any of these movies. You didn't get a single mention about Betty Ross.
No. Or the Abomination. Or the last thing you got was like after the last thing you did in Harlem, I think was in Avengers
Yeah,
1 or whatever.
yeah.
But yeah,
They showed like stock footage from the Incredible Hulk, but aside from that, there really wasn't that's the only reference that was ever made to that movie that was made, right? So it's
right.
almost like now, where we are now and what we seen from that character, they retconned that movie without actually like making it clear that they retconned
Yeah. And and let's be real, Hulk's two most important best solo or not even solo, his best storylines is Planet Hulk
it.
and World War Hulk, World Breaker Hulk. And one of those involves a whole team of characters, while the other one is him in isolation. But is it enough to merit a whole movie onto itself when you can kind
Nope.
of get a little bit of it in Thor Ragnarok? Come on now, like you can't. There's nothing really much you can really do. I know people want Red Hulk. I know they want red. They want She Hulk. They want red She Hulk. You know what I'm
Gray
saying? Like
Hulk,
Gray Hulk. They want
Patch.
Sasquatch. No, the wind. They want the Wendigo. And what's his name? The smart ass Brainiac, big brain ass
Um,
motherfucker. What's his
right,
name? I
right, right.
forgot.
They teased him in the Incredible Hulk. Doc
They
Samson.
did. Doc Samson. Right,
My
right.
bad.
They
And I
teased him.
is that his? Nah, I don't know if it was
It's
Doc
Doc.
Samson.
No, no, that's the green haired. That's like his homeboy. That's his partner.
It was like,
Uh,
oh man,
but
his
yeah.
name was it? See, hold on, man. I know
Uh,
this is going against protocol, but we gotta Google this here.
yeah. We're behind the scene here, man. We got to at least know a little bit what we're talking about. Hold on a second. What? He's like Brainiac.
No, the villain was the leader. He was the leader. That was the villain because he got the gamma radiation that went into
Right.
his head or whatever.
Samuel Stearns, the leader. Right, right.
Right, it was Rick Jones. That was his name. Rick Jones was the
Mm,
name. He was the Hulk's like sidekick or whatever. But yeah, I
okay.
mean, so in terms of what we're saying here, then like Universal Studios was kind of ahead of the curve a little bit. They were smart enough to recognize, yes, we're gonna lease out the rights to this character to y'all because this is something that's gonna happen. Pay us our royalties, and we're gonna do our own thing and continue doing what we're doing over here. Pay us our royalties, make your movie. We'll see you at the box office, right?
Right.
But even now, they did it right because there's no point. There was never any purpose. Like you were saying, the Incredible Hulk is a good character, but the fact that he's stronger than everyone and the fact that he can basically do damn near whatever he wants to do. You square up with the Hulk 9 times out of 10 without a handicap, you're probably going to lose, right?
Right.
So go ahead. Y'all can have him. Just do him justice. And that's what they did.
Yep. It was a safer risk than them trying to invest 100 million plus on a blockbuster they're not sure they can sell. You know
Yep.
what I'm saying? So it's like, look, y'all have it. We'll collect the royalties. Y'all do the. It's easy work. We collect the royalties. We'll get us the check, and y'all
Mm-hmm.
have fun. And you know what I'm saying? That it is what it is. I know Hulk fans would want him to have a solo movie and a solo
But
trilogy. It's
nope.
just nothing there. I don't
Nope.
care if the Gray Hulk, Bruce Banner and the Hulk separating. Like I
Nope.
just there's not much of a dynamic for that for a whole film. You know what I'm saying? You got Professor Hulk in Infinity Endgame.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like okay, there's enough to him where you can just add to it to a group movie. You know what I'm saying?
Right. And
Right.
more or less, oh man, and we kind of talked about this with Black Widow too. But more or less, we got everything that we had needed from that character throughout the arc of those 5 movies.
Mm-hmm.
We got the angry Hulk, we got self-doubting, insecure Hulk, and then we got the best of both worlds. We got the Hulk that we got Bruce Banner that decided it's better if Bruce Banner and the Hulk are the same person. Boom, that's the whole story. In Thor Ragnarok, we got Jock Hulk. We got the Hulk that just enjoyed fighting and smashing and being an asshole. We got all of that in one throughout the course of 5 movies. We don't need to ever see another solo Hulk movie ever again.
Yeah. Um, Pure simple. And you know, even in the future, if they want to do the Wolverine versus Hulk, it's still Wolverine, and meets the Hulk. It's not Hulk standalone anymore. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
He just works. He works. He plays off best when he's surrounded by other characters, and
Yep.
he's not the main focus of the film. He's a great addition. He's a great extra piece to the film that can add to
Mm-hmm.
it, but in terms of a solo film, I'm not interested in seeing Everett Ross as Red Hulk. I'm not. Him being big and red with guns, shooting people and destroying things. Like I don't care to
Oh
see that.
man.
I don't care to see Betty Ross as Red She-Hulk. Like, I don't.
And
Like,
with yeah,
put it in Disney Plus. Don't like,
or just don't make it.
or
Don't
don't
make it at
make it.
all. Don't make it at all.
Yeah, don't
Now,
make
with
it.
with that being said, I'm gonna okay. So Captain America, right?
Right.
Now, initially, when I seen Captain America First Avenger, I wasn't all that on it, but the way I went into it was a little bit skewed. I was going into it expect because I've seen a lot of movies based on World War II, right?
Mhm.
I've
Right.
seen Saving Private Ryan already. I've seen movies that kind of deal with that era that are presented in a different kind of way. So I went into it kind of expecting it to fall along those same lines. And when it didn't, I was kind of like, man, this ain't all that. But I'm going to say, I think Cap went 3 for 3, bro.
Okay. Okay.
I,
3 for 3, huh?
I,
All right.
I'm gonna give Cap 3 for 3 from the free throw line because they established there's three things that they established for that particular character. They established a baseline for the character. They
Mm-hmm.
established a moral code, and they also established a bit of not even a bit of intrigue. They established a lot of intrigue because the first movie was set in his own time. We got
Right.
the backstory of what happened when he ended up becoming Captain America. We seen him fight in the war. Even even though like the thing with the Red Skull and the cube and everything like that might seem a little bit dated now, which I'm gonna
Mm-hmm.
admit it might seem a little bit dated. But then with the Winter Soldier, it was like
Game
it was
on.
yeah, exactly. It was nonstop, fast paced action movie type shit, right?
Right.
And then with Civil War, we got the we got the blow off before the blow off. Like there's so much that they did right in terms of how they handled that character and the world that was built around that character and the status that the character had attained throughout the other movies in the MCU that I don't really see a lot of misses. I don't see too many parts where they made mistakes and missed on what it was that they were trying to target as it related to those three standalone Captain America movies.
Mm-hmm. I don't mean to be harsh in the first one. Is the first one is to me it did what it needed to do. Establish the character,
Right, right.
establish a relationship with Bucky. It showed you the world where he came from. You know what
Mm-hmm.
I'm saying with Agent Carter and everything like that. Peggy, is it Peggy?
Yep.
Who's his niece? Okay, so it is Peggy. Yeah, Peggy with Peggy Carter. So establish that it had to. You had to have the foundations of the man at a time. Well, what's he like in his time? So it did that. I don't mean to be harsh on it, but it's just in comparison to the rest of the films in his trilogy and some other films, it's not quite up there. It just isn't. But
Right.
it didn't need to be because
Yep.
it was the
It,
appetizer. It was
right.
right.
Yeah, I agree with you because like the real purpose of that movie was just to be a lead in into the Avengers. They
Right.
didn't make it with the intentions on it being something to be recognized years later. Yeah, like you were saying, you hold Winter Soldier in very high regard, right?
Right. I do.
in very high regard. And I agree with you on that. I can't disagree with that. As it relates to Thor, I mean, you said 1 out of 3.
1 out of 3 for Thor. Yeah,
That's
and
not,
that's not
yeah,
horrible. I'm just saying 1 out of 3. Like Thor Ragnarok is just a 9 out of. That's like a 9, 8 out of 10 for me. You know what I'm saying?
right.
Like it's
That was
up
the
there.
most fun. Yeah, that was the
Yeah.
most. Yeah, cause yeah, Ragnarok was just fun, man. That
Right.
movie was fun. It was, yeah, like again, same situation. The first Thor movie while it wasn't bad, and I mean, it established Loki as that guy. Like
It did.
it really established Loki as the like if anything, the first Thor movie existed to where we could take Loki seriously as a villain in the first Avengers movie.
True.
If it did nothing else, it accomplished that right there. So there's no complaints there at all. The second Thor movie, The Dark World, was okay. I can't, I'd be lying to you if I said I remembered a lot of things about it because I've only seen it once. But yeah, that wasn't a bad movie either. But like, it got to be a little bit too. Oh man, and people might get pissed at me saying this, but
Go
like
ahead, man.
the second, the Dark World felt a little bit too Lord of the Rings like for my taste.
Mm,
It was a little bit too Middle Earth for me.
I could definitely see that. Yeah.
But I get it. The first movie took place primarily on Earth. So the second movie had to take place on Asgard to give us a feel and an aesthetic for everything. But yeah, the second movie just got to be a little bit too much of that. And then when it became clear that the ether was going to be set up as another Infinity Stone, that's when it was like, okay, now I get it. I'm invested now.
Mm.
Before, I didn't really know too much about what was going on. But like once that kind of alarm bell went off in my head, it was like, okay, I'm on board with this now. I'm rocking with this a little bit now. But yeah, I'm in agreement with you on that in that regard. Yeah. So overall, what we're saying here is that the Captain America film series trilogy, meaning that it's been completed already, are the best standalone movies within the MCU right now.
Most definitely. And it's the one that catapulted. If Iron Man kickstarted the whole thing, Cap
Mm-hmm.
is the one that made it to what it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
Captain America, the Russo brothers with Winter Soldier is what elevated. Because let's be real here. If it continued like it was for Joss Whedon, and if it would not, the MCU would not be as strong as it is right now. If it
I
were to
agree with that.
continue down that path.
And I agree with that. We had that conversation before. I agree
Right.
with that.
Right.
Um,
So when Winter Soldier up with the Russo brothers really brought their A game, and everyone else brought their A game. It ushered in this new era of the MCU, where it's a higher. It exceeded your expectations almost every single time. You're like, what the
right,
hell? Why is this so
right.
good? Why is
Because
this?
they
This
went
doesn't make
out,
sense. Right.
yeah, man. And oh man, see, I got something in my back pocket, but I'm not gonna do that right
all
now.
right. All right.
I'm
But
not gonna do.
uh,
I'm not gonna do that right now. But they knew what they was doing over there. So, yeah, man. Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you 100% on that.